For millennia, humanity has looked up at the full moon and felt its power, a celestial body linked to madness, mystery, and transformation. They call it the Lunar effect, or the Transylvania effect. The belief that the moon drives us to chaos. Ask a police officer or an ER nurse. Many swear that nights with a full moon are crazier than any other. This belief is deeply ingrained in our culture, but is it rooted in ancient folklore or biological reality? In this comprehensive review, at Rawino, we share content that inspires, informs, and entertains. Subscribe and join the Rawino family. We synthesized decades of scientific research to find the answer. The central conclusion? The widespread belief in a broad lunar effect on human behavior is simply not supported by the evidence. For crime, mental health crises, births, and hospital admissions, the moon's influence is a myth. However, there is one area where a subtle, credible effect has been found: the modulation of human sleep. To understand the myth, we must go back in time. The very words lunacy and lunatic come from Luna, Roman goddess of the moon. Ancient civilizations observed the moon's profound influence on the tides and logically extended its power to other domains. In the 5th century BC, Hippocrates wrote that madness during the night was a visitation by the moon goddess. This was treated as medical fact. Philosophers like Aristotle and Pliny the Elder hypothesized that because the brain is moist, it was susceptible to the same lunar forces as the oceans. This belief had real consequences. In the 18th century in England, individuals could argue for a lighter sentence if the crime was committed during a full moon. These myths aren't just Western. They are a global phenomenon, embedded in cultures worldwide. Today, popular media perpetuates this folklore, keeping the symbol of the full moon potent and mysterious. Why does this belief persist in the 21st century, despite contradictory evidence? Studies show a significant portion of the population, including professionals, holds this belief. The answer lies in psychology, specifically two powerful cognitive biases: confirmation bias and illusory correlation. Confirmation bias is our tendency to favor information that confirms our beliefs. A chaotic night coinciding with a full moon vividly reinforces the belief. However, they will likely fail to notice an equally chaotic night during a crescent moon or a quiet night during a full moon, because these events don't fit the narrative. This leads to an illusory correlation, the perception of a relationship where none exists. We remember the hits and forget the misses, but perhaps the myth originated from a genuine phenomenon in our past. Some researchers propose it's a cultural fossil from the pre-industrial era. Before electric light, the full moon dramatically illuminated the night, extending waking hours, facilitating activities, and, critically, disrupting sleep. The resulting sleep deprivation could have caused real behavioral changes. Artificial light made this genuine effect obsolete, but the cultural memory remains. When we look at the hard data, the scientific consensus regarding the moon's influence on behavior and mental health is clear. No such effect exists. Let's look at psychiatric crises. A major 2017 study found no statistically significant difference in emergency visits across the lunar phases. A comprehensive 2019 review of 18,000 records confirmed this. There is no relationship between the lunar cycle and psychiatric admissions. What about crime and aggression? The notion of a full moon crime wave is a staple of folklore, but it dissolves under scrutiny. The most definitive evidence comes from meta-analysis, a technique that combines the results of multiple studies. The seminal 1985 meta-analysis by Rotten and Kelly examined 37 studies. Their conclusion? The moon accounted for less than 1% of the variance in these behaviors. In a final refutation, a large 2019 study in Finland found a statistically significant decrease in homicides during the full moon. What about the full moon baby boom? It's a persistent myth, but flatly contradicted by large-scale data. A robust analysis from Australia examined over 7.1 million births across 29 years. The study found no statistically significant effect of the full moon. And the chaotic emergency room? This powerful image held by many professionals is a product of anecdote, not data. UCLA professor Jean-Luc Margot reanalyzed studies claiming a link, finding statistical flaws. Upon proper reanalysis, the purported effect disappeared entirely. One study found an increase in fatal motorcycle crashes. But this is likely environmental. The increased light encourages more nighttime riding, not a biological effect. While the consensus is against a lunar effect on overt behavior, the domain of human sleep presents a compelling and nuanced picture. A pivotal 2013 study by Christian Kayochin provided the first strong evidence. Volunteers were monitored in a highly controlled lab, eliminating moonlight and time cues. The results were striking. Around the full moon, EEG recordings revealed a 30% decrease in delta activity, the indicator of deep, restorative sleep. Participants took longer to fall asleep, slept 20 minutes less, and showed diminished evening levels of melatonin, the sleep hormone. Because these effects occurred without external cues, it pointed toward an endogenous circulunar clock in humans, an internal biological oscillator. A 2021 study expanded on this by examining diverse populations, from indigenous communities to urban college students, using wrist actigraphy. Across all groups, regardless of urbanization, a consistent pattern emerged. Sleep was shorter and started later just before the full moon. However, the evidence is far from unanimous. A large-scale reanalysis by the Max Planck Institute failed to find this correlation. They suggested this might be publication bias, where studies showing a positive result are more likely to be published than those showing none. The most reasonable conclusion is that the lunar cycle may exert a subtle, measurable, but highly variable influence on human sleep. How could the moon affect us? The most common folk science explanation is the biological tides theory. Since we are mostly water, the moon must pull on us, right? This is unequivocally false based on fundamental physics. The moon's gravitational force on a human is infinitesimally small, less than that of a flea on your skin. Oceanic tides are caused by differential forces across the entire Earth, a principle that does not apply to the small volume of the human body. Furthermore, the combined gravitational pull is also maximal during the new moon, yet there is no folklore about a new moon effect. What about moonlight itself? While light affects biology, modern artificial lighting is thousands of times brighter than the moon, making its contribution negligible. And crucially, the rigorous laboratory studies showed the lunar effect on sleep in the complete absence of light. This leaves the internal circulunar clock as the most scientifically robust hypothesis, modulating key neurohormones. Such clocks are well documented in many animals, where they govern crucial behaviors like reproduction and migration. In humans, these subtle effects are likely a vestigial echo of a clock that was more important for the survival of our distant ancestors. The scientific literature reveals a stark dichotomy. We have two distinct and largely unrelated lunar effects. The first, the popular belief in madness and chaos, is a myth. Decades of research yield a resounding null result. The second is a subtle physiological reality, the modulation of human sleep. This investigation is ongoing, compelling, though not yet unanimous. The true lunar effect is something most people would never consciously perceive. A faint biological signal almost completely drowned out by loud cultural noise. Future research should pivot away from chasing folklore and focus on the fundamental science of the human circulunar clock, a new frontier in chronobiology. So the next time you look at the full moon, remember that its greatest power may not be over the tides or our sanity, but in the ancient rhythms ticking silently within us. Thanks for watching Rawino. Your support means the world. Enjoyed it? Like and subscribe for more.